Hello everyone, it's Nigel Seeley here and welcome on in. It's Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. You're joining us for the penultimate Game Bet Match of the French Open. It's the semi-final stage. Before I introduce you to Sean Calvert, who's going to try to pick the bones out of these two very one-sided semi-finals, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like, get the comments in. A load of you have joined us throughout this tournament. We haven't really done as well as we had hoped, but we've said all along it's a very tough tournament and the favourites obviously do have a good record here. And we've got some very heavy favourites tomorrow. Good afternoon, Sean.
Good afternoon. You all right?
Well, Alexander Zverev. That's the only thing I've got to say to sort of sum up my mood this morning.
I don't want to hear those two words.
Thinking? What is he thinking of? What is he thinking? How many chances have we got to give this bloke?
I think I'm out of chances with him, to be honest. I mean, he's got an excuse handy, hasn't he? Every time, this time the first set was all right conditions, but the rest of them it was too slow. I mean, all right, there might be something in that potentially, but you wouldn't see Rafael Nadal, for example. Let's just take him, playing an opening set in what he thought were good conditions, and then it started. So let's say it drizzled, and it came really, really slow, and it didn't suit his top spin. Can you imagine him going, "Well, that's it for me. I'm not, I can't play in these conditions. I'll carry on, but I'm not happy about it. So I'll just stand 20 feet behind the baseline and see if I can just see what I can do from there." It just doesn't happen, does it? It's too easy. It's too convenient for him, to say, "Oh well, the conditions were too slow because it became too slow for me. I can't do it in those conditions." The best players find a way, don't they? Djokovic found a way. There was all right, there's a little bit of win there. But Zverev's, he's so far behind the baseline. It's a no-brainer for Djokovic to come in, do a bit of serve and volley, do a few drop shots, just play the conditions as they are. Down the other end of the net, you've got a bloke saying, "Well, I can't play in these conditions." So, I mean, I think it was the right bet initially as underdog. I think he started slight favourite actually, Zverev. So, what little value I think was there, we kind of got. But it's like you say, how many chances does he need? A set-up. He didn't even take the 38-year-old into a fifth set from a set-up. So, yeah, I think I've said about enough on that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm done with him. He's never going to win a major. Never. He hasn't got the right game plan. He's got the right mindset.
I think he's got the game. I think the problem is he just reverts to this passive.
He hasn't got a game B, though, has he? I mean, his game A, his tactic is to hit it hard as he can, use that serve, which is effective, and then nothing else.
Well, his backhand is extremely reliable. He does a little bit too predictable with it sometimes. Maybe 80% cross court. Mix it up down the line. He's got everything you need. He just doesn't have at times. He does. I say he doesn't have it. When you see him play Alcaraz, he doesn't play like that. He attacks, goes for Alcaraz. Big serve, big forehand. Let's push you back beyond the baseline. I didn't see any of that last night really against Djokovic. Whether he thought he could just outlast him, which I suppose is fair enough, but he does it too often. If you've got the weapons that Alexander Zverev's got, your camp should be saying to him, right, this is yours for the taking. Right, you've got a massive first serve. You hit 70% of them in. You should be dominating. Going for it on your terms, win or lose on your terms. Don't be behind the baseline, 10 meters behind the baseline, waiting for mistakes. That's, as I've said before, that's not going to win you a Grand Slam. He doesn't play like that all the time. He seems to just revert to it at certain times, and he certainly reverted to it yesterday. And you don't deserve to win if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, very disappointing performance from Alexander Zverev. But that was yesterday, and today is today, and tomorrow is tomorrow. And we have semi-finals action tomorrow. And talking about Alcaraz, we mentioned, then we might as well start with him up against the very consistent Lorenzo Musetti. Carlos Alcaraz is minus 715 to win this match. A huge, huge favourite. Lorenzo Musetti is 5. Spread is 6.5. Total here is 34.5. There's some specials there to set betting total sets as well. Currently, there's 69 different markets available on the Bet Rivers website and on the app. Make sure you download the app. If we're looking at the head-to-head, it's very, very heavily dominated in favour of Carlos Alcaraz. He leads 6-1 in the head-to-head records. They have played 5 times on a clay court. 4-1 is the wins on clay for Alcaraz the last time, and the only time Musetti won against Alcaraz was in 2022. They did play in Rome earlier this year, 6-3, 6-7, 6. They did play in Monte Carlo, where Musetti was injured. But he took the first set 6-3 and then lost 6-1, 6-0. Could barely walk at the end there. But Lorenzo Musetti is the most improved player, I believe, on the men's circuit at this moment in time. He's the only player to reach the semi-finals of all the Clay 1000 events this year and the French Open as well. So he's Mr. Consistent, but he's up against a player that seems to be getting better and better as the tournament goes on. And the one thing that I've noticed this week, and I think it's an ominous for anybody going into the next, into Wimbledon and to the US Open as well, is the gap between the number 1 and number 2, Sinner and Alcaraz, is so big compared to the rest of them. And it's reflected on these odds.
Yeah, I mean, we've backed Musetti a few times, haven't we? This clay swing, Monte Carlo, where he, just didn't have anything left for the final. In Rome, I was quite bullish about his chances. People will probably remember in the semis against Alcaraz. Alcaraz wasn't playing that well, was he? Musetti came into that, talked the talk. It didn't walk the walk, did he? He just, I wouldn't want to say bottled it, but he just didn't. He didn't show up, did he? And this is the problem with this matchup. It's how Musetti handles the occasion. We should just talk about the conditions just quickly first, because
that's important. Sorry, I didn't mention it's a very important fact.
Yeah, I don't think this is ideal scheduling for Musetti. The scheduling is obviously this match is on first at 2:30 local time. Musetti would have certainly preferred a night match. The slower the better for him. Just on the weather on Friday, it's going to be a bit of rain potentially in the morning, but cloudy, 20 degrees, a little bit windy as well, 13-mile-an-hour winds. Has been quite a bit of gusty winds at the French Open in the last few days. That might make it tricky as well. Just quickly on semi-final statistics, only 4 underdogs have won in the Roland-Garros semi-final since 2011. And it averages just 17% in the last 12 editions. I know a lot of those were Nadal and Djokovic and whatever, but I think 17 of the last 18 favourites have won so far. Just looking at this, Bublik was the only one, wasn't he, that sort of bucked the trend. We haven't seen many underdog winners.
I was looking at the other day. I think if you went back to about the last 27 or 28 favourites,
yeah,
there's been 2 winners and 1 withdrawal from underdogs. So 3 underdogs progressed out of the last. I think there might even be 30 now. I looked at it the other day for Benny Weekly's Tennis Live.
It's always the same in the French Open. It majors generally, but the French is, as I've said many, many times, it's by far the toughest test for someone like me to try and find some value. I think the last 2 dogs that won, Bublik against Draper, I think Norrie, but he wasn't underdog by the time that the match went off, and we did have him. But yeah, very, very slim pickings, and it generally is. It's 5 sets on clay. The best player normally wins unless there's a fitness issue. So for me, this match against Musetti Alcaraz, it's all about how Musetti handles the occasion. Because there's a lot of stats that would suggest that he can make this close. He was shackled by nerves in that Rome semi-final, never really settled in that. Even when he had his chances in the second set tiebreak, he didn't. He was very, talking about passive. He never looked like he believed at all. Now he's in his first Roland-Garros semi. Maybe the fact that there's less pressure on him here than there was in Rome. He had everyone, pretty much 99% of the people backing him in Rome, hoping for him to win and cheering him on. Now he's not really expected to win. He's not at home. Will that make him more relaxed in a match that he's not expected to win? That's what you've got to weigh up as a bettor in this, really, because there's stats that suggest that he can do it. The head-to-head isn't great on clay. Service points won and return points won tells 108-92 in favour of Alcaraz. Musetti's actually only held serve 60% of the time on clay against Alcaraz. Alcaraz winning 46% of return points. So that's a big problem that Musetti's going to have to solve. Musetti only winning 43% of his second serve points in this matchup compared to 52% for Alcaraz. So it hasn't been the most ideal matchup for him, but a couple of those occasions that they've met, once was the French Open a few years ago. It was another one where Musetti just didn't show up. Just didn't. He was just awful. The Monte Carlo one is he should have retired after that first set, really, but obviously he couldn't with the crowd and stuff. And the one in Rome where he just, as I said, he was shackled by nerves. So I think he can do better in this matchup than it suggests. The one win that he did have was when you tipped him, didn't you, in Hamburg? I think he won it 80-1, didn't he, that tournament?
Yeah.
Hamburg is very, very...
Still going on about it. That was 3 years ago. We're still going on about it now.
We've had the Hamburg winner pretty much every year. This year, Kaboli. Yeah. I think we had another one as well, didn't we? Artur Fils, the year before. So Hamburg's been a great tournament for us. But the relevance of it is that it is very slow there. Thick layer of clay, very slow. That's where Musetti, for me, would have a decent chance of doing something against Alcaraz. If we're looking at current form, Alcaraz was superb against Tommy Paul, but Tommy Paul was injured. Tommy Paul was at least half a step slow in a lot of that match. All the tennis he's played withdrawn from next week as well. But it was a great display of attacking intent from Alcaraz. Musetti had to battle in the wind against Tiafoe. Tricky match. A lot of people suggesting he might have been disqualified for booting the ball at the lines judge. I didn't really see much in that. It just looked, that would have been harsh if he'd have been disqualified for that. For me, he barely touched it. But the statistics that suggest that he can do something. This Roland-Garros, Musetti, service points won and return points won total, 112. Alcaraz, 113. So very little in it in that. This clay swing as a whole, Musetti, 86% win rate. Service points won and return points won total of 108. Alcaraz, 95% win rate and a total of 111. So again, not a huge amount of difference between those two stats. The last 10 matches on clay that these guys have played against the current top 10. Musetti, 90% win rate. Service points won and return points won total of 110. Alcaraz, the same total, 110 and 100% win rate. So there isn't much in it in terms of the general level that they've played through this clay court season. I would certainly be tempted with the over 34.5 games here at -106, I think it is, with Bet Rivers. If this match was played at night, I don't think the day match will favour Lorenzo Musetti. I still feel like if he relaxes, if he allows himself to play his best tennis, I mean, he has obviously played a major semi before at Wimbledon, but he hasn't played one here. It's all about how Musetti handles the occasion, I think. If he comes in here, as I hoped he would come in Rome, thinking, right, this is my chance. I've beaten this guy before. I've taken sets off him before. He didn't approach it that way in Rome. He just looked very, very nervous. I think that the question you've got to ask yourself is do you think Musetti will show up, basically? If the answer to that is yes, and I think over 34.5 games is probably the bet at, as I say, -106 at Bet Rivers.
Over 34.5 games, -106. Currently the price. You can move that toggle up and down to get a better rate. You can go 35.5, 36, depending on how brave you want to feel, and get a bigger price for your money. As I said earlier, there's 69 different bets available on the Bet Rivers app. And if you download the app and have a bet on this app, you'll be able to watch this semi-final as well on your mobile device or your tablet or your home computer. So that is not an official play, though. Sure, we're not going to go official play.
You've just got to weigh up whether you think Musetti's going to show up, and it's a little bit of guesswork, isn't it? So yeah, it's tricky. But if you think Musetti's going to turn up with the right mental attitude and the right intent, then I think that's probably the way to go.
And that match is tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern start. So start proceedings with the match between Carlos Alcaraz and Lorenzo Musetti. Then a little bit later on in the afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern time, where the conditions will be a little bit cooler. It's going to be a cool day all round anyway. But it's a match between Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic. Jannik Sinner, the world number one, has been absolutely amazing tennis, playing some incredible tennis this week. Hasn't really run into much, but he's done what he had to do, and he's been on the eye, caught the eye amazingly with his performances. Novak Djokovic is rolling back the years, beaten Zverev. He hadn't dropped a set before that loss against Zverev. So was that first set loss against Zverev. And then Sinner here is still a heavy favourite, -455 for the world number one. Novak Djokovic is +350. Spread is 5.5. Total here is 36.5. Again, 69 different markets on the app. Download that app. Head across to the website. But these are a selection of the set betting and the total sets here. If you follow up the head-to-heads, well, it's a close one. But Jannik Sinner does lead 5-4. There's not many people in the world who have a better head-to-head than over Novak Djokovic, and Jannik Sinner is one of those people, 5-4. But he has won the last 4 meetings between the two of them, which is really important. And the last time they met at a major was in the semi-final of the Australian Open, where Sinner won 3-1. The only time they had met before on a clay court was back in 2021, which is a bit irrelevant, and Novak Djokovic won that 6-4, 6-2. Djokovic is in great form, win Geneva, brilliant here. Sinner Only one loss since his return, and that was against Carlos Alcaraz, but a heavy loss in the final in Rome. Sinner has been amazing. The stats, I mean, you're going to give us some numbers here, which are going to be the highest numbers that we've probably ever spoken about in the tournament. I mean, he's making hardly any unforced errors. He's serving incredibly well, but he hasn't really run into anybody as of yet. This is a test, but it's a test that, maybe, Sean, it could be a test that the longer it goes, the better it suits Djokovic, rather than the longer it went. We fancied Zverev to be better over Djokovic, because the one question mark about Sinner is his physicality.
It is. I mean, he's given up 15 years here. I mean, 23-year-old against I mean, if you can't outlast a 38-year-old, with all due respect to Novak Djokovic, I keep mentioning his age, but he is 38. Over the best of 5 sets on any surface. I know he hasn't. He has had stamina issues in the past, but he's barely broken sweat in the 5 matches he's played here so far. This is a match at this stage of their careers that the Jannik Sinner should be winning, and you can see why he's minus 455. That the stats are not just the stats, but the way he's just dismissing opponents. It's not even close. Some of these matches, the level is incredible. I'll talk about that in a second. But we know Novak Djokovic has still got the level. We know he brings it in big matches. My worry with him against Zverev was the stamina in a night match over the best of 5 sets. I mean, in the end, Zverev didn't even make him go to 5 after winning the opening set, which is incredibly disappointing from his point of view. I've talked about that already. Far too passive. You're not going to get this sort of ball as Novak Djokovic. You're not going to get this Zverev sort of bunting it around, waiting for mistakes, this sort of passive rallying from miles behind the baseline. You're not going to get this from Jannik Sinner. This is going to be a much heavier ball, a quicker ball, probably the most aggressive baseliner the game's ever seen. You would probably suggest in Jannik Sinner. The aggression levels are off the charts. I mean, can Novak Djokovic keep up at the age of 38? You would suggest maybe for a bit, probably for a bit. I can't see him doing it over sort of 4 or 5 sets. If we're looking at the head-to-head, I think only the last 3 matches are relevant, really. Potentially the last 2, but I've gone as far as the last 3. Service points won over 10 points, won totals 104-96 in favour of Jannik Sinner. He's held serve Sinner 95% of the time in his last 3 matches against probably the best returner of all time in Novak Djokovic. All those matches were on hard courts. Now it's a night match on clay. Maybe that will help Novak Djokovic, as you say, blunt some of the pace of the ball that's coming at him from Jannik Sinner, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. That the relentless pace and depth that this guy produces is phenomenal. Djokovic was able to take advantage of Zverev's deep court position when he played that match yesterday. Sinner doesn't go that deep. Very, very rarely does he go more than a meter or 2 behind the baseline. It's not going to happen. Djokovic is going to have to find a way. I'm not saying he won't. I think Djokovic is the master of finding a way. Did it against Zverev yesterday. No one's got more experience of playing these matches at this level than Novak Djokovic. I wouldn't say he's definitely not going to find a way. He could find a way here. I'm not sure what it is though. I've tried to think how he's going to do it. I'm not too sure unless Sinner has a day where he's a little bit off. We know Djokovic has got that level. I'm not sure he's got the level for 5 sets or really long 4 sets. To me, he looked tired at the end of that 4th set against Zverev. If Zverev had actually managed to push him to a 5th, I think the original play could potentially have come in. I think I would have fancied Zverev in a 5th. As I say, he did look very tired. If we look at the stats, this will show you. I mean, this Roland-Garros so far, Jannik Sinner, service points won, every 10 points won, total of 124 and 97% holds the serve. I mean, Djokovic's stats are pretty good. They're pretty standard, if you like, Djokovic stats. 114 service points won, every 10 points won, total, and 92% holds the serve. In the past, that's certainly been good enough to win plenty of majors. Now Sinner's coming in with 124. And Sinner's winning 69% of his second serve points. It's not just big serve, big forehand, 1 or 2 shots extra the points over. He's winning the second serve points as well. I think Djokovic will find a way to make it competitive. I can't see this being anything like a comfortable win for Sinner. I quite like the 3-1 here to Sinner, which is a plus 250 chance for Bet Rivers. Djokovic has still got the level. Has he got the legs over the 5 sets? We still don't know. It was a question that I asked before the Zverev match. We're still not sure. He hasn't played one of these top guys at over 5 sets since Wimbledon 2023. He hasn't played 5 sets at all for a year. So yeah, I think I'm not sure what Djokovic is going to do to win 3 sets here, unless Sinner has those struggles physically. I mean, that's perhaps one thing that you could think about Sinner. He has struggled sometimes on clay over the longer matches. That there could, he lost to Alcaraz from a position where he potentially should have won it. He had a couple of set points in his opening set against Alcaraz in Rome. Did fall away quite worryingly once he'd lost that set. So potentially the physical side of it for Sinner, maybe that's a chink in his armour still. We don't know. He's only played 3 sets in every match so far. Djokovic, we're a little bit concerned about him over 5 sets as well. So let's go for a 4. Sinner to win it in 4 sets. 3-1 plus 250 with Bet Rivers is my tentative advice on that one.
Yeah, plus 250 with Bet Rivers for a 3-1 win. That was the scoreline the last time they met at a major in the Australian Open, where Sinner won 6-1, 6-2, 6-7, 6-3. I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar kind of performance again. Easy set wins for Sinner. Djokovic grinding out a tiebreak win, something like that, or 7-5. Bublik pushed him close, didn't he? In set number 2, he had the opportunities to win the set there, and he's going to get a chance. It's just whether he's going to take it. And Novak Djokovic will take any opportunities he will be given against Jannik Sinner. But we are expecting the men's singles final to be Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, and pretty much what we said at the beginning, really, without saying it. We said it.
Yes.
We went with some that Alcaraz was our pick that we said he would probably win it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, as I said at the start, who's going to beat him in that bottom half of the draw? It was very difficult to find somebody. Musetti was probably the best of the bunch, but is he going to beat him over the best of 5 in a major semi-final? Well, we'll see. But yeah, pretty much all the favourites came in, didn't they? Other than Q1 Sinner, Q3 Musetti, Q4 Alcaraz, Q2 it was the favourites were Djokovic and Zverev. Djokovic was slight underdog there, so. Yeah, the French Open. It's incredibly difficult to find any value. We've managed it a couple of times, but it's a very tough test. The grass is on its way, and it's looking distinctly like Alcaraz and Sinner.
The grass is on its way. The weather in London is absolutely diabolical for 10 days. Awful rain, wind, horrible. Oh, it's horrible. There's one day, and next Wednesday is pretty good, and that's a bit.
Looks all right in Europe. Bit of a heat wave in Europe next week.
In London, isn't?
Oh,
London's
I don't know
awful.
London.
We have the tennis over in London next week for the women's. That's why I mentioned it there. And you'll be able to follow that on Betting Weekly WTA. Before we do that, we end the clay sort season with one more Betting Weekly game bet match. We will be back on Saturday to give you our final predictions. It's going to more than likely be Jannik Sinner against Carlos Alcaraz. But I know a lot of people will be cheering Novak Djokovic. I know that I want to see Novak Djokovic meet another final, but it's going to be a tough ask to do that. Make sure you follow all the content here on the Betting Weekly Studios. There's loads of shows coming your way. 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday through to Friday. Betting Weekly Live. Today we have Simon Holden and Rory Barlow looking at the Nations League and the World Cup qualifiers and the tennis as well. They've got the tennis in there. 2 o'clock Eastern Time, Betting Weekly Hardball. We have Doug Kazarian and his team of American handicappers giving you all the best bets on the baseball for the week. And also at 3 o'clock, today, Fast Break with Doug Kazarian and Wes Reynolds. They'll be looking at all the NBA action ahead of the first game of the NBA Finals. So everything we got you covered here. Also, give us a follow on our socials at Because We Win. And most importantly, please hit that subscribe button. We're growing all the time. We want to hit 10,000 subscribers, hopefully before Wimbledon. And with your help, we can do so. Finally, subscribe to the Betting Weekly newsletter. The Insider is out this week. We have a US Open golf special. The team of handicappers have been working on that. Paul Hughes, our editor on that, has been working hard. We've got picks from all the team on who they think will win. I think it's golf's 3rd major of the year. Will it be Scotty Scheffler, who's been in great form? You'll be able to get the full rundown of the players, the course, and the best bets on the Insider, which is free at www.bettingweeklystudios.com. Just register there. Sean, thank you very much for your time. One more podcast. We'll be back on Saturday. and then we move on to the grass. Take care. Have a good weekend. See you later.